So let us begin once again. We were almost towards the end of the lecture when the meeting time ended. Okay, so these are the two methods of analytical centrifugation. And the last point which I wanted to tell you is about the care and maintenance of the instrument. How should we actually handle the centrifuge machine, or rather the rotors? Okay, firstly, I think I've already told you that the sample tubes which are kept in the rotors, they should always be balanced. Okay, there should be even number of tubes, and the tubes which are placed in the opposite direction, diagonally opposite, they are supposed to be exactly equal in their weight. Okay, because if there is an imbalance, then that may lead to some problem to the shaft of the centrifuge machine, and that is a very costly part of the instrument. Okay, then we should also try to avoid corrosion of the rotors, because once the rotors start corroding, then that will result again in imbalance during the centrifugation run, right? And in order to prevent the corrosion, the rotors should always be kept dry. Okay, so especially if you are doing biologic work, the temperature of the within the rotor is always less. Okay, it may be less than the ambient temperature, and at the lower temperature there is a chance of accumulation of moisture. Okay, and that moisture, if it is not wiped out, then it will result in corrosion of the rotor. Then another thing is that the surface on which the centrifuge machine is kept, that should be a vibration free surface. Okay, and that is again essentially to keep to run the centrifugation at a proper in a proper balanced manner. Then usually, especially if the centrifuge machines are costly, more than 1 lakh rupees, then we normally keep a record of all the run times. Okay, there is something called as a logbook. Do you know what is a logbook? Or no? So every time we use the centrifuge machine, certain details are to be maintained in a record book. Okay, especially the name of the operator, then what was the sample, whether it was an acidic sample or alkaline sample or something like that. Then the centrifugation speed, which rotor was used, what was the speed of centrifugation, how long was the centrifuge run carried out. Okay, so and the date and the time, of course. So all this information is usually maintained properly. Why it is maintained? What is your
So
guess?
that if any damage occurs, then the person must be held responsible for according to
that was the guess I made. Yeah, you would probably want to say the same. Okay, is it to hold somebody responsible? The answer is no. It is not to hold somebody responsible for some mistake. Okay, but it is to know what went wrong, or what happened to the machine, and therefore it got impaired or something. Okay, it stopped working. Okay, have you understood what I'm saying? Normally people are worried. People feel that, okay, if I do something wrong and the instrument gets damaged, then people will hold me responsible, they will punish me for something. That is not the case, and therefore what people do is they don't write on the record book. Okay, so for example, if I'm using the instrument and I think that somebody will go wrong from my side, and therefore I should not be held responsible, so the best way is not to write anything in the record book. Okay, and then when many people try to do that, they don't write anything, and then when suddenly the things go wrong, and the engineer comes, the service person or the engineer comes to find out what went wrong, and then he's unable to find out, he's unable to trace what went wrong, and therefore he is not able to advise you, okay, good practices of using the instrument. Okay, so you should not be worried about that thing. Okay, the worry should be that if you don't write the things carefully, then the service engineer will not be able to find the problem. Okay. Sometimes we have wrong habits, and because of the wrong habits, the instrument will get damaged. Okay, so in order to correct ourselves, it is always a good thing to write down in that notebook, in the logbook. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Everybody.
Yes, sir.
So next time, remember that when you come to the institute, okay, when the lockdown gets over and you start coming to the institute physically, and you are using certain instruments in the laboratory, okay, there are logbooks kept beside each instrument, and you are supposed to write down all the information, required information in that logbook. Okay, so don't be worried. Nobody's going to hold you responsible if anything goes wrong. Okay, it is just to find out the problem that had happened. Okay, that is called troubleshooting. So the records are meant for troubleshooting. It is not meant to punish somebody. Okay. So with that word, I think I'll end my lecture. And if you have any difficulties or questions, you can ask me. Okay, so we have 5 more minutes for that. This is a laboratory which shows how the centrifuge machines are kept, they are operated. And what you can see here is the laboratory is so clean. Okay. Centrifuge machines are supposed to be used like that. Okay. If there are any accidental spillages in the rotor, if the sometimes the centrifuge tubes get broken while the centrifugation is being done. Okay, so if that happens, then immediately you are supposed to stop the instrument, and whatever sample has spilled inside the rotor, that must be cleaned carefully. The rotor can be removed from the machine. Okay, so invert the rotor, clean it properly, wash it with distilled water. Okay, dry the rotor, and then use only the dry rotors. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If there are no questions, then I'll end the lecture. Okay. Is it okay for everybody?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
Internet problem here also, so I'm unable to end it quickly.